All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I'm just going to be doing a lesson on, the current power outage that is taking place in Northwest Indiana, in particular, Gary, Indiana, where people are documenting how, the power has been out for, nearly a week because they did suffer a storm, recently where, they got a lot of rain. It's also flooding, and the people that are out there are without power, and this is going to become a reality for all of America, pretty soon where, the power is going to go out and no one knows when it's going to be back on, So I'm just going to play a couple clips and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And before I get started, I'm going to read the copyright disclaimer. It says copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. So the following clips that I'm going to feature are being used for educational purposes only. I'm not making any money off of anyone else's content. So fair use, fair use, fair use. Let me turn this off. And, let's get into it.
Y'all, the lack of news coverage of what's going on in Gary, Indiana right now is pretty concerning. These people are going on day 8 of no power, no help, no news coverage, or nothing like this.
So Gary, Indiana, all of Northwest Indiana, is now on day 7, no power. Of course, by 7 days of no power, there's only so much gas you can put into a generator within 7 days.
My name's Aja, and I'm in a blackout, one of the worst ever for Indiana, and we're going on about a motherfucking week. So come get ready with me as I go in my house, load my fucking pew-pew, because people are robbing people for generators, and put new batteries in my flashlight as we navigate the fucking apocalypse.
So the power has been off in Gary, Indiana for 7 days due to a crazy storm, right? And we thugged it out through the whole 7 days. And I didn't want to get a hotel because I didn't know how long this was gonna last, and I wanted to save as much money as I could, just to, just in case. Because you just never know how much money you're gonna need, because how long this tragedy gonna go on. So on the 7th day, I finally bought a hotel room, right? It was power. We went where the power was, right? No storm, no nothing. The power went out here in the hotel room.
I don't know, man. I feel like there's a setup here, man. How does this go on for 8 days straight and this is not on the mainstream media? This is Gary, Indiana in America we're talking about here, right? They're treating Gary, Indiana like Cuba, right? Because blackouts and now food shortages are happening. And there's a lot of things happening in Gary, Indiana right now because people don't have food. The UN was warning us. They told us about it. And now I hope you understand why they actually tokenize food on the blockchain. Millionaires are about to be made from this. You guys want to check this out? The CA will be pinned in the comments below. We're in the digital.
Let's play this next one. Where is that? Right here.
We're gonna be all right. It's literally gonna be fine. I'm Aja. This is Carter, and we are still in the motherfucking dark. It's been 8 days, no power. But we have a very notable birthday on the charts. Everybody tell Carter happy birthday. To get him a happy birthday bone, courtesy of all of Carter's fans. Also got him a rope. As you may not know, last night got really crazy. There were a lot of pew-pew shots right outside of my motherfucking door. We actually just heard some coming in. So guess what we did? We went to Bass Pro Shop and got some. Just in case you didn't know, it is motherfucking pitch black dark still in this motherfucking house. Everywhere, actually. You don't even street a street light, do you? Tonight, it's me and the kiddos. So we literally spent all day charging our devices, and we will be actually singing happy birthday to Carter, giving him his special bone that was gifted to him. We will be watching whatever movies are left on my laptop. I'll be using that as a power bank, and no update on where the fuck we are at with power, because our governor don't care about the little blue spot in this big red state.
So, as you can clearly see, just those couple clips, showing you people telling you about, what's been going on out there in Gary. Plenty of videos have been coming out, and, they're out there going through it. One account has came out where I guess their, energy company out there, NIPSCO, they said there was a truck out there and someone, shot at their truck. So obviously, excuse me, Slakia, that someone purposely tried to stop them from restoring power, because as we know that once this happened, not just in parts of America, but all of America, once this entire nation faces a blackout, then that's when things are going to get real, man. Because again, she's a woman, doesn't know if she has a man, but if not, she's by herself. Yeah, she has her gun, but even then, she said she had to go out and buy bullets. If you are a woman, you should already at least have you a couple, cases of ammo. Not advocating that, having, guns and ammo is going to save you, especially when Jacob's trouble is in full bloom, but you're supposed to have these things already, put to the side, in case things like this happen, which is nothing wrong with having, flashlights, batteries, things just in case, of power outages, or when Jacob's trouble happened, having a little bug out bag, but just not putting your trust in those things. Why? Because we're going to need divine intervention, and America is about to suffer from the exact same plagues that ancient Egypt suffered from, and was one of those plagues darkness, and they were showing you that it's pitch black out there. One woman, she was in a car driving, she turned her headlights off, and what? Just nothing but darkness all around. That's going to become a reality for all Americans pretty soon, So I'm going to close that out and get straight to it. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 10. I'm going to start at verse 21. And as you can see, the subtitle reads, Darkness over the land. And that's exactly what's coming to America. Darkness over this land, man. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Lord brought that very same darkness that he brought upon ancient Egypt to America. That supernatural darkness, man. That darkness that could be felt, darkness that not even a flame, a fire, could see, because that's how thick it, is going to be. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 10, verse 21. It says, And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And again, man, when you're, in pitch black, you can't see anything, you can't even see your hand in front of you, then yeah, man, that this is pretty alarming. It's eerie because, again, you can't see anything. And the only other thing you can rely on is, your hearing at that point, Seriously, that's when, certain of your senses kick in more than others. Because obviously, if you can't see, then you'll be able to hear everything, that's around you, right? Verse 22, it says, And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings, right? So the children of Israel, they didn't suffer from these plagues. They had light where they were dwelling. If I'm not mistaken, we were in Goshen, Egypt during that time. So, we were okay. But what the Egyptians, wherever they were, they had that, they had to face that darkness, man. They had to deal with it, right? Now, this is just giving you, the surface level of what those Egyptians suffered. They suffered that thick darkness for 3 days. But Wisdom of Solomon, the 17th chapter, goes into more detail, right? So it's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, and verse 1. It says, "For great are thy judgments, and cannot be expressed. Therefore unnurtured souls have erred. For when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation Israel, they being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness, and fettered with the bonds of a long night, lay there exiled from the eternal providence." So right, they were oppressing us. So therefore what? The Lord sent that plague of darkness upon them. So dark that, they didn't even want to move from where they were, because again, they couldn't see, Verse 3 says, "For while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, they were scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being horribly astonished and troubled with strange apparitions." So right, they were also seeing things, the Lord were sending spirits, to come and plague those Egyptians, which that very same thing may happen to these people, out here, these Babylonians, that once the power goes out, because again, during the day, yeah, you have the sun, but what, once the sun goes down, that's it, man. It's going to be pitch black out here, and as you know, that's when, most animals are active at nighttime, because yeah, you'll see lions hunt during the day, a couple lions, but for the most part, once that sun goes down, lions, they run in packs, to go and hunt, whatever particular beast, hyenas, they come out, if I'm not mistaken, wolves, all types of animals come out at nighttime, man, but again, the Lord even sends spirits among them as well. Verse 4, it says, "For neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, but noises of waters falling down sounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenances." So right, they were hearing all types of things, water, it's like it says, water falling, rushing waters, as it's going to say in one of the latter verses, hearing all type of things, man, not even, where they were sitting, kept them from that fear, Says, "No power of the fire might give them light, neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night." So right, they could have lit a torch, and it still wouldn't give them light round about, That's how dark it was, man, But again, just like, I forget who said it, it may have been the elder apostle Ramlab, or another brother, I was watching. But, this thing that is going on in Gary right now could possibly be a test run, because the people that are out there, are saying it's, it's damn near like the purge, because again, they're hearing gunshots. People are breaking into cars, breaking into homes, because again, after so many days without power, people start to loot, and go out and look for goods. Because again, if it's been, a week since they've had power, then again, people, start to get very desperate, and then they, go and take matters into their own hands. Just like it says in 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter, that what? People aren't going to regard, their kings nor princes. They're not going to give a damn what anyone, in a position of authority has to say, because they're going to seek to, save themselves, to take matters into their own hands. Like it also says in that very same chapter, that they're going to, raid, other people's houses with the sword, which the modern day sword is the gun, and take whatever goods the next person has, to preserve their own life, So that's how real it's about to get out here, because again, if they're suffering that now, how much more when America is in full-blown Jacob's trouble, man? There's not a day that's going to go by where you aren't going to hear gunshots, man, if you're in the city, because none of us know where we're going to be once all hell breaks loose, man. But these cities, these major cities are going to be some of the worst places to be, because again, that's where the most violence is going to take place, man, in these cities. Not saying that it's not going to happen in the rural areas either, because again, man, there's a lot of, militia groups that are out there, people that, stay out there, that train, that actually have, doomsday prepped, themselves up until that time. But, nowhere really is going to be safe. But, this is why we need the Lord, to be with us. But again, the very same thing that these Egyptians suffered in ancient Egypt is the very same thing that you Americans are about to face as well. So I'll read this last verse. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17 and verse 6. And it says, "Only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself, very dreadful, for being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than that they saw not." And right, so again, they were more afraid of the things that they couldn't see more than the things that they could, because again, they were seeing demons, just like it says in the latter part, they were hearing beasts, run by them, animals run by, snakes hissing, water rushing, that's a very fearful thing, man. When you can hear all these things, but you can't see where you're going. And even where they were, when they just sat in one spot, they could still, they were still being plagued, for 3 days. But again, once this grid goes down in America, who knows how long it's going to be out, and we know that people are going to get very, very desperate out here once that time comes. And, that's when people are going to, start to take matters into their own hands, So again, this could possibly be a test run, just to see how people are going to react before they actually shut down the entire country again, So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, where I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.